just end up straight. All right. Peter Dan.
Not over here. That's about all you can say.
That's a cool.
That's their team? Did you toss your broom over there? My game, no, one's right here.
Good morning and welcome to the 2018 Dave Jones Mayflower Cashspiel. This is the quarterfinal.
Good morning.
And we are featuring, once again, Sheet 4. And in this quarterfinal matchup, there are 4 games going on, but we are bringing you Team Webb versus Team Ouellette. You can see the teams up on your screen right now. Team Webb hailing from Peace River, Alberta, skipped by Scott Webb, third Dean Darwent, second Steve Byrne, and lead Damien Nass. And Karen, you want to introduce Team Ouellette?
Throwing the Yellowstones this game is Team Ouellette. Kevin Ouellette is our skip. Your second stone is Mike Fleming. I believe he might be throwing third.
Swap those, yep.
Yep. And Chris Granicelli in second. Logan Ward throwing lead. And they hail from Nova Scotia, and I believe they curl out of Mayflower this year.
They do, yes. I play them on Tuesday nights. They've
So
been
home
making it
club.
difficult for us. We'd also like to thank the curling store. You saw the little promo at the beginning for them for bringing this broadcast to you in partnership with Strong Coffee Media and 45 North. We are so appreciative for the ability to bring this Bonspiel to you. We've had live action from every draw so far. And there we see Logan Ward for Team Ouellette. That's his second of 2 lead stones. So we are through the lead stones after that's been thrown. Team Ouellette with hammer.
Yep. So right now, Kevin absent for a stone or so. Perhaps find out why we missed the beginning in a little while.
We did have a karaoke party last night, so I hope he wasn't here too late.
I hear the event's been going well.
Yes, been going very well. We've had the kitchen and bar open the whole time. Lots of people out. Maybe not so early this morning, although you did get that extra hour of sleep.
Well, hopefully they're tuning in to us on the web streaming.
Exactly. If you'd like to follow along with updates from the results of the games, you can follow Mayflower Curling Club on Facebook. We're posting all of the results. And of course, then you can see other events that are happening at the club. We have league curling every night of the week and then fun events on the weekends as well. So stay tuned for that kind of stuff.
So if I'm tuning in for the first time and I want to try curling, does Mayflower offer that opportunity?
We sure do. We have a Learn to Curl program. It's running right now. And so if you want to contact the club, you can email mcc@mayflowercc.com or call 902-454-0085 to find out more information. And we also have a free senior Learn to Curl program. It's on Wednesday afternoons. And you can reach out again, 902-454-0085 if you've ever thought of trying curling. Maybe you know someone who does.
Very cool.
So I say Logan throwing his second of 2, but in this end he throws the 3. Kevin's not here right now. Mike's in the house. So you see Chris Granicelli going down. He'll be throwing 3 rocks as well.
So for perhaps a novice curler or new to watching curling, with the 3-player rotation, the first 2 players throwing will throw 3 stones each instead of the allocated 2 as per normal.
Yeah, you still get to throw 8 rocks per team. You just change how many each player throws. That wouldn't be very fair if you're missing a player to only get to throw 6 rocks.
versus 8.
I feel like the 4-player team would have a very heavy advantage there. So we've got Steve Byrne lined up in the hack right now for Team Webb. Steve holds the broom for Scott when he throws, but throws second stones.
See a lot of less traditional rotations nowadays, don't we?
Absolutely, yes. Actually, this is my first year back throwing skip stones. I've been throwing third stones for a few years, and it's really different to go back to the traditional lineup. We've been so used to me holding the broom and throwing third. It's nice to see, though. You do whatever works for your team.
Yeah, you put the best player at the best position and make sure they're throwing the rocks where they're most going to benefit the team.
So I've seen a fairly open end. You can't see in the screen right now. There it is, a very high red guard. So remember, red is Team Webb. They don't have the hammer, so they're just trying to, of course, force Team Ouellette to a single here by continuing to sit 2. They're trying to bury that one around that center guard, but I have a feeling it's going to be pretty hard to put it in a place that's totally inaccessible.
Yeah, the first few ends are usually played pretty clean. Reserve some time for the end and get a feel for the ice.
Each team waiting for the other one to blink first.
Yeah. As we see the stone coming in, it will make contact.
Just needed to hit that red stone a little thicker to redirect over onto the side red. So Team Webb will continue to sit a single, and I think they'll just continue to try and make this draw around that high center guard. There's no real better place to put it, I don't think. Just try and prevent a double by having them a little more even.
Team Webb looking to perhaps force Ouellette to take 1 point this end so they can get the hammer.
Having to wait a while. We've seen with a little bit of extra weight added on this sheet this weekend, Karen, that rocks are tracking a little bit. So in this case, they're getting a little bit of finish, but might have to adjust where the broom was. That one was a few feet heavier than the previous one, but actually didn't curl as much. They're flat, so there isn't a double from the center line to the wings. But what you see Mike calling for Chris to do here is to actually make the hit and roll that way and try and group the stones and maybe end up with a double in a shot or two.
Or just make it more difficult for the other team to remove their stone as well.
Absolutely, keeps them grouped together, prevents the separation, and try and force a miss. This one is taking the curl though.
Yeah, even just changing the line on a path you haven't played yet, it's first end. May not know the weight to ice ratio.
That one curled up a little bit more than Chris's first. It's around, but it's nice to keep it in the rings. Of course, we're going to see this back and forth. Team Webb trying to roll it to the center, and Team Ouellette trying to roll to the wings.
And that guard out front is quite a ways away from the front of the ring, so not really a concern yet.
This one looks pretty good. Hits it just high of the nose. I just wonder if there's a double left there. They're pretty even, I think.
Pretty flat, yeah. Mike seems to think it's there.
Yeah, at very least roll over and try and tuck a piece underneath so that there's no hit and stay.
Yeah. On the roll, you don't need a lot of weight to remove that red stone out of play. It only has to move about a foot to get out of the rings. So.
Logan working hard to keep this out on the high side of that red stone. Looks like it might be a good shot here. And I wonder if it just got that red out of play.
We'll take a second look just to make sure. Camera angle seems to appear that it's very close.
And like you said, didn't take much to pop it out the side. So we're down to skip stones here. Scott Webb travels down. I'll just remind everybody who else is playing. I mentioned we do have 3 other quarterfinal games. So in the first qualifying position from qualifying out of the A bracket, we have Jamie Murphy taking on Jason Vaughn. I wanted to call him Jeremy because Jeremy's playing on his team. The other A qualifier was Chad Stevens. He's playing Doug McKenzie. And in the final quarterfinal game, Ed Sear versus Scott McDonald. And that's the only game with no Nova Scotia team. We've got Ontario and New Brunswick playing there.
Quite a few teams from away.
Yeah, it's been really nice to see this week. A lot of the away teams qualifying as well, or playing in qualifying games.
So the process to qualify was through a triple knockout?
Triple knockout, 3 brackets, A, B, and C. There were 2 teams, that's Murphy and Stevens, qualified out of A. 3 teams qualified out of the B bracket, and I want to say that was McDonald, Vaughn, and Sear, if I'm not mistaken, but I might be. And 3 losses, you're out, but the rest of them winning their all-important game in the C bracket are here in the quarterfinals as well. It's a 3-game day if you want to win this thing, or if you want to come second. May as well try and win it then.
Yep.
So Scott stuck around there on his hit.
So game of endurance today.
It is, yeah. We've got games at, of course, you're watching now, and then Atlantic time 12:30 for the semis, and planned for 3:30 for the finals, and they are all going to be streamed. And we'll be joined by the women's. They go directly to a semi-final. If you're following any of the women, The semifinal teams are Jill Brothers, Tanya Hilliard, Kristen McDermott, and Veronica Smith.
So do you think the 3-player, 1-sweeper is a disadvantage with all the new sweeping controversies?
People talk about that. They say, oh, it's when you have 2 sweepers but only one is sweeping, depending on the shot. People are saying, oh, it's easier on the sweepers, but I find it's more difficult because they're either sweeping to keep it straight or sometimes sweeping to make it curl. So with the 1 sweeper, I think you're going to see that person, a little more fatigued. And honestly, you're actually sweeping fewer rocks. You throw 3 as the single sweeper and sweep 5 instead of throwing 2 and sweeping 6. But I would argue the biggest fatigue is on the mental side of it being only on you to determine and figure out what the weight is like.
And if you do fatigue, there's nobody there to catch the slack for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice. I always call it kind of the cheerleader position, when you have 2 sweepers and the one isn't sweeping. At least on our team, they act as a cheerleader. So they're listening to what the person in the house is saying. They're reinforcing and encouraging the lone sweeper. And I find it works very well. And this nice hit and roll from Scott Webb. He's going to, I think he'll force Mike to the other side of the sheet for the blank.
And then we're still not 100% sure if that red rock rolled out. It appears through our camera that it is out.
Keeps looking at it, though.
Yeah, but the camera angles sometimes deceive us, either through shadows or angles. So Mike may just opt to draw for his 1. Could hit and roll out and take a chance. Still retain the hammer.
Yeah, it looks like they're not totally sure if that's out. So draw for 1 here.
So, of course, Mike not a stranger to throwing last rocks. He has some experience skipping. But
with this team, yeah. And Mike actually, I think it was in, I'll check the year, 2014, as skip, Mike won this spiel. Different team, but 3 of these players, Mike, Kevin, and Chris, played together for a couple years. This is Kevin's first year skipping. He was throwing last rocks last year. Made the switch this year. Mike throwing 3rd, but of course today, no Kevin. I'm a little worried, and this is total speculation. I heard the power went out in Sackville.
oh, okay. Yeah, we had a lot of winds last night, so power outage and a time change. You might just not be on schedule yet.
The sweeper's working hard on this one, trying to get it into the rings, at least to outcount.
Looking for full 4.
To get right to the 4-foot, and what a great effort there.
No stranger to skips rocks, is he?
So a single point with a questionable ability to blank. Just take the single, and so that's Mike Fleming for Team Ouellette with a single point. In the first, they'll lead 1-0. Team Webb will have hammer in the second end. And if you missed the start of the first end here, you are watching the 2018 Dave Jones Stanhope Simpson, the Dave Jones Mayflower Cashspiel, sponsored by Stanhope Simpson Insurance and Alexander Keith's Brewery. This is the quarterfinals in the men's division. Team Kevin Ouellette today being skipped by 3rd Mike Fleming, taking on Team Scott Webb. Nova Scotia-Alberta matchup.
And we have 3 other games on the go, which will give you a quick update on sheet 3. Team Murphy is ahead by 2 points after the first end. On sheet 5, we have Team McDonald ahead of Team Sear by 3 points. Also in the second end now. And on sheet 6, they blanked the first end, so it's still a 0-0 game over on sheet 6 for Stevens and McKenzie.
I think Stevens throwing for a single here in the second.
Playing a little quicker the other sheets.
They got started a little early. Everyone's anxious, but for the viewers,
we waited for you all to wake up.
Our feature sheet, wait.
That one just slipped to the back of the house. So second end, the ice is probably a little quicker now that they've been playing.
There we got skipper Kevin. Back to the 4-person rotation. So Logan won't have to sweep by himself anymore. He'll have Chris's help.
Hey, I'm sure he'll probably make Chris sweep the first few on his own anyway.
Oh, exactly. That's only fair.
You got to take a break the last 2 rocks.
The corner guard going up from Team Webb. I've been seeing more and more as we play in this 5-rock rule, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that this game. The change to curling rules this year that the second corner guard put up can't be removed from play by the team without hammer. So oftentimes you'll see if the first stone thrown from the team without hammer is in a good position, the team with hammer will often make a play on it, as they've gotten themselves into trouble by leaving it there. But in that case, Logan's first stone went to the back of the house, so we did see the corner guard go up. So it's kind of an indication, okay, don't really mind where that rock is.
Yeah, and it's behind the tee line, so it's not really a danger to the team with the hammer.
Yeah, it's easy to outcount.
Yeah, or use for backing, or probably be more of a help than a hindrance back there for the red team.
So Logan trying to better that one, puts this tight guard right on the center line.
So as Selena was saying, we have a new 5-rock rule, so the first 5 stones of the end, if they are in the free guard zone, cannot be removed from play. This is different from last year when it was 4-rock rule, so it's just one more rock that has the opportunity to stay in play a little longer.
And what was the reason for the change, Karen, to introduce that 5-rock rule?
There's a few reasons. One of them is the opportunity for a team that may be in a deficit to have a better chance to come back. So it puts a lot more rocks in play, changes the strategy a little bit. It's a little more challenging, brings in more finesse shots. So it, requires a higher skill set for some games. So as we grow in this sport, we get better every year, one would hope. And just looking for a way to challenge players a little bit more.
Nice explanation.
Hopefully I covered most of it. I'm sure there's probably other reasons, television reasons and sponsorship reasons where they want to film and produce longer games.
Yeah, I sum it up as the same, just gives a little more advantage to that team with hammer when they need it, when they're down in points.
Yeah, not only do they throw the last stone, they also throw the first stone that can hit. So there's almost 2 advantages now to having the hammer.
This one from Chris, out a little wider. I think that probably got in some new pebble that hasn't been broken down yet and stopped short of the rings and did not take the curl.
Yeah, the few feet left and right of the center line will wear down a little more quickly, not only just from stones, but from sweepers traveling up and down. So as we get out around the edge of the 8-foot and farther out, it'll be a little heavier until it's played.
This is a hit here being played by Steve Byrne. When you do have the hammer, you don't love to see the team without having a stone right in that control zone in front of the rings.
I always like to have that path to draw the button with your last rock. Mike Fleming was good at managing that in the first end.
Team Ouellette here not sitting one, but they do have the center guard out front. And so that's the reason Chris is being asked to draw around here. It's hard to ignore stones that are shot, but that one is buried behind a corner guard on the side. Now this one a little stronger from Chris. They're looking for the tick. Try and roll this rock into shot position, but it might be in that hole there you see between the 2 reds.
Yeah, it is open, although, the 2 red stones out front do make it a little more challenging, narrows down the tolerance factor, so. So from the camera angle, it looks wide open, but from the angle for the thrower from the hack, probably see about 3/4 to 7/8 of it. So the option and tolerance here is we're trying to hit the yellow stone, but the option is to remove your own guard out of the way if as a plan B. So as you skip yourself, Selena, you're probably always thinking of plan B throughout. So successful in removing the front stone, which opens up the yellow stone for the next play. So we saw plan B there. The importance of plan B, quite it's good
Awareness.
for the team. Yeah, good for the team to know that that option's there. So if the shot changes halfway down, they're not surprised by it.
So Mike just looking at which shot is in third position. If that yellow in the top 8 foot were to be gone now, looks like 3 points for Team Webb and no center guard.
And the other red stone on the far right of our screen does have a yellow stone in front of it, so that's a difficult one to remove for them. Although it would be a short raise if they wanted to try that.
It's a tough position to be in. You've kind of got to get your rock to be shot, but you can't really do that easily with your shooter without leaving it open. And of course, if you raise this yellow, you're grouping the stones a little bit, but I don't know that there's really any other option for Mike here.
Yeah, I think if you draw top 8 foot around that yellow, you can maybe get a little bit covered, put yourself in a position to be number 2 shot, but if they strike that stone, they can't get number 1 or number 2 out of it. Maybe opting just to guard this number 1. Curling more than they expected.
Yeah, this one's moving toward the guard. They aren't so worried about the guard as they are about keeping their shot in a good spot. They don't want the shooter to roll out beyond, they'd like that yellow to outcount the side red, and it does. So Webb here can only sit 2 by hitting. Might leave a double if they nose. But sitting 2 is all right when you have hammer.
It is. And the front is open, so the team with hammers got good control right now of the front of the house.
This one's taking its time to curl. They don't want to roll out, but the flat roll, that worked out very well.
So Kevin sizing up whether the double is there. I think even if you can just get your stone over towards there, maybe you can set up for your last rock.
Yeah, exactly. I think that red stone is overburied behind the guard a little bit. So the shooter could roll and just corner freeze onto it. It's going to need quite a bit of weight, I think.
The ice seems to be quite weight sensitive.
Straighter with weight.
We're getting a thumbs up from the ice maker, so we must be reading it the way he was hoping it would be.
Mike just got that one out a little bit on release. It's rolling the opposite way, but again, they don't want that to be outcounted by the red on the side, which I think it might be. So red continues to sit a single. I don't know that the yellow on the right side can be hit. There is a guard out front, a red guard. So just a draw to the open side or the more open side of the sheet, I guess is a better way to put it, the left side.
Yeah, without the center line guards now, the team without hammer is forced into playing the wings just to minimize the opportunity for the team with hammer to score.
So Dean Darwent looking for this draw to the side, 8 foot. Sweepers don't need to help it.
And that'll sit 2 for him.
Stops just in time. So no double on the Reds.
First skip stone for Kevin Ouellette. It probably took them an end or so to get Kevin back in the routine. As you see him there, shake hands with the other team as we do at the beginning of every game. Better late than never.
So I don't know how much Kevin can see of this stone, but he's going for the hit. And this is fairly up weight. Really curling now. I want to stick around on this one. Just lost that one on the sweep.
Slightly down a little bit maybe on weight and just took that break point a little earlier.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We've seen some good movement to the wings. Going the other direction, I've watched more hits going to the wings, and they seem to break off the center line and then straighten up, but that was earlier in the weekend. In this case, it was straighter and then it broke.
Always a challenge, the ice.
So for Scott Webb here, looks like the same shot, drawing to the wings. Just trying to solidify his ability to score that second point. He'd love to get a piece of this tucked under the yellow stone that you see out front on the right side of the screen.
So even with the new 5-rock rule, we're still seeing the traditional strategy, score 2 with hammer, using the wings. Hasn't really changed the overall fundamentals of strategy.
Yeah, most people are agreeing that early in the game there's really been no change. The team with hammer isn't using that second corner guard, or if they do, they're not putting up a first corner guard, they're only putting the second one up. It's only really later in the game toward the last few ends where it's really coming into play. And teams would have settled with the ice by then. It's less risky to play with more rocks in the rings.
Yeah, someone once told me that when you need to score 2 points, you need 1 guard. When you need to score 3 points, you need 2 guards. So
yes, exactly.
It's a good analogy.
Unless you're trying to steal, then you need 2 guards all the time. That one does the trick. I think Kevin can still hit this and stay shot, but I think Scott will have a shot no matter what, because Kevin can't afford to roll any more than a piece into the 12 foot.
This one's a little tighter to the yellow stone out front. A little more buried, I think. Of course, we saw his first one move quite quickly off that center line as it got away from the center line. It's nice to see this level of curling, still enjoying it down there, having fun with the other team. Looked like there was something dripped from the ceiling or something.
It has been very humid here. A little bit of rain the past couple days. We got a nice sunny day today.
Oh, and we had enough wind last night. I think we might have dried ourselves out. Welcome to Atlantic Canada.
Yeah, I was driving home. There was a huge puddle on one part of the street, and the rest of the street was dry with leaves blowing around. So Kevin Ouellette's last, looking for the hit and stay.
By the front.
ends up shot stone, so
And did move it a little to the outside, so I'm not sure how much. He wasn't by that front yellow by a whole lot. But all you have to do is move this yellow stone probably 6 inches, if that, and you could score 2.
yeah, pop it halfway into the 12-foot. So for Scott Webb, similar shot that he just threw, heavy draw. He was to the back 8 foot. So in this case, maybe 1 foot heavier should move that yellow stone just enough. Might play 2 feet heavier.
Well, you just have to move the yellow stone and keep yourself in the 8 foot. So even, you know, back 12 foot is probably going to do it for you as well.
Yeah, you don't want to throw much more than that, of course. Straightens up with extra weight, as sweepers are indicating that it's heavier. They're waiting for this to take a real break. It's a lot extra weight. Looks like it's well through the rings. So it'll pop the yellow out the side, but won't stick around for shot. So I think that's just a single point there for Team Webb, and we are all tied up after 2.
So as you said, that little bit extra weight did straighten up the line, and unfortunately didn't make as much contact with the stone as he anticipated.
Yeah, I think that was closer to probably half weight.
I like how we can throw a perfect end from back here.
We can. We're very, very good at that. That's why armchair curling is the best sport. You never lose. You never miss.
And we always say we curl 100% from behind the glass. So a quick update on the other sheets. On sheet 3, we have Team Murphy versus Team Vaughan. They are scored at 2-2 in the 3rd end. On sheet 5, where we have Team McDonald versus Team Sear. Team Sear picked up 1 point in the 2nd end. It is now 3-2 for McDonald leading as they play the 3rd. And on sheet 6, we have Team Stevens versus Team McKenzie. Team McKenzie scored 1 in the 2nd, and he leads this in the 3rd end at 1-0 over Chad Stevens. As the teams take a quick break, chat a little bit, and get ready to settle in and start the next end. Always got to rehydrate and get that sip of water.
We got some more people out. Everyone a little late for the 9 o'clock start time, but made it for 9:30. And I think it's actually Chad Stevens up. He's throwing, and he's Redstone's there, Karen.
Oh,
Chad
sorry, I have that
1.
written down wrong then. Without the team names on the scoreboard, we're relying on our memory stick back here, pen and pencil.
If you want to keep updated and not wait for us, you can always check out the scores on worldcurl.com, and there's also a link to the live stream for the later games when you'd like to watch them. That's at 12:30 and 3:30.
So not making it over the hog there. I was updating my list of stone colors, so I didn't see if it was just underthrown or if it might have picked.
I was paying attention to the same thing you were, but it didn't look like the sweepers actually wanted it to be over. It was going to be so high, so once they knew it was light, they seemed to just let it go. I think it was just light. So great opportunity for Team Ouellette to put up this corner guard. Nothing in play right now.
Looking to get it nice and tight, just covering the edge of the 8 foot. Right where the skipper wanted it.
Nice halfway guard. When they get too close to the hog line or too high up, they're easy to come around, but of course they're easy to come around with a hit weight for the other team and tight to the rings. You aren't going to quite get that finish around the guard, so halfway in this case on this ice right now has been ideal.
Are you starting to see a different skill set required now at second stone with the 5 rock rule?
Yeah, traditionally it was always your second stone was your big weight hitter, your peel waiter, your person that really did cleanup duty, and that has shifted a little bit more to the 3rd, but of course the 3rd still needs those finesse shots, so the 3rd is becoming more of the 3rd and 2nd, sorry, becoming more of those multifaceted throwers, with the second stone often having to make that draw into the house and try and put their stone in a critical position, especially for a team. And I don't think this is a 5-rock rule thing, but we're really realizing it as teams need to steal. Your lead will throw 2 stones, and your first, second stone will have to be that nice draw to the top 4 foot.
So the 5-rock rule providing more rounded players in every position now.
I think so, absolutely.
And I also think, you know, your second stone, not only do they have to draw, but they may have to do the double peels to clear those 2 stones.
Exactly.
So they have to have that broad range of weight control.
They can't do it on their first stone, but
potentially
they might have to be better at it on their second stone. You don't get 2 chances anymore. Yeah, you have all positions, maybe with the exception of lead, that really do end up throwing that big weight with accuracy. Lead has their own specialty. We still have the tick shot and a few more soft weights, like board weight and soft weight come around taps.
Just that weight to kind of move things around.
Yeah, exactly.
Put yourself in a better position. So nice roll here, way over to the edge.
Half buried from the hack.
I don't know if I'd want to try it from the outside in. We haven't been out that far.
No, and that is those outside pass. I think we're seeing teams avoid them a little bit. Those outside pass have been running very straight. You almost have to throw it inside where you want to hit and have the sweeper sweep it out.
And of course, with most of the players here being right-handed, that's on the far right side, so very difficult to get out there.
For Team Ouellette here, though, with that nice roll from Team Webb, it still leaves the corner guard and a way to get around the corner, so they're not going to worry too much about it. They just want to stockpile some rocks in behind.
Very nice draw
on the
here.
wings. It's a good one from Chris Grancelli. Maybe leaves a bit
sliver.
open.
Yeah, a little sliver. You probably could slice it out of there.
Scott indicating if the guard is hit, that's fine too. It'll be a fairly open house.
So option here is you could take the front stone out. We're past the 5 rocks now.
And this is kind of that plan B you were talking about. Maybe not as obviously a plan B in the last end, but here either shot is acceptable. They'd love to get the one in the house.
I think they're going to get the one out front. Roll themselves
roll
over.
the shooter in. Soft enough weight to do that. They played the soft weight to try and get the back one and keep the shooter, but actually with that guard being halfway and verging on tight, shooter rolled and stuck around.
Yep.
So Kevin here asking for the draw to the open side. He could put up a corner guard again. It is early in the end. We're on second stones. I might be tempted to put up that guard again, Karen.
Perhaps. We are only third end as well at a tie game.
True.
So you know, forcing the other team to take one's not a bad result. Although we would want to get our 2 for sure.
Kevin has
Sorry. Yeah.
Being forced to 1, I mean, you're tied right now. I just would probably wait a little later, but either way works. I know Kevin's thinking is probably, well, there's 2 reds in the rings, and if they hit, I want to leave myself with a double and try and get a blank out of this. I think that's probably the reason for that.
Getting a lot of rocks in play, it might be too late to see a blank.
You never know. I thought yesterday, last evening, Jill Brothers was going to get 2, and she was making a hit, and she actually got a blank. It was a really weird shot.
Yeah, some of these guys can throw the weight to get the long rolls and the flat rolls too.
So just the single there, coming up to the nose. If this red stone is hit on the nose, Mike's shooter will stay and probably leave a double on the yellows.
Looking for a little bit on the outside of nose and maybe push that red out of the rings, the second red out of.
Yeah, I think do you think it'll come up into the back of the outside red?
It might, like we saw earlier in the first end, you only have to move that stone that's biting a few inches. So you don't need a lot of weight to roll off the stone. You can make major contact with the first stone and just kind of nudge it out.
This one's starting to move now.
Looking for just the outside of nose. Gets nose.
Just didn't come up. Maybe with that extra bit of weight. It looked like it wanted to. Kevin had the sweep call, but realized it wasn't taking off as much as he thought. So the double called here, about a half rock.
So do you think Kevin's at a slight disadvantage having not played the first end playing down this way? Or do you think Mike will pick up on that and relay the information?
I mean, maybe a bit of a disadvantage, just not having seen the stones come this way, but communication's key in curling, so Mike would, you know, if he thinks Kevin's making an error in terms of where to put the broom, he would let him know.
So as these stones work their way higher in the house, the decision is, you know, do you hit them or are they better off as kind of a guard?
Yeah, yellow's still shot now, so if he knows this red as well, the other thinking is if that's nose, you won't be second shot. And it's kind of a useless play.
I believe it's a danger, so they are going to try to remove it.
Here Chris asking roll to center. I think they need to roll one way or the other.
Change
to
that
be
path,
shot.
yeah. I think if you roll the other way, you might endanger yourself too. You might send the red back towards yours.
This one's going to roll more than they bargained for. And they go into that side red. Wonder if that popped out the side.
Yeah. Camera angle certainly looks like there's white space between the stone and the house, but
so to make the double, it's actually a little bit fortunate there. To make the double on the yellows, the first yellow, the outside, the higher rock that Scott would hit, is going to slam right into that red. But if he throws enough weight, I mean, you'd have to hit it pretty thin to get it to spin in, the yellow to spin in and stick around. So I think the double's pretty routine here.
Pretty safe. And if that redstone's not accounting anyway, it probably doesn't hurt to get it out of the way.
Exactly. It's only acting as a catcher at this point.
Although from this angle, it looks like it almost might be, the red might be biting.
We weren't sure in the first end. When it's not at risk of counting, when the score is taken, they don't put a stick on it. So we never actually knew. So this should be pretty big weight. And Scott's throwing the out turn to get the good action off the first stone, make it spin.
Lots of rotation to help it roll off the stone.
No mistake there, didn't even touch the back red.
Yeah, as you said, pretty routine. Actually spun their shooter a little bit higher into the house above the tee line.
So Kevin not really left with an option. He can't roll anywhere great toward the center, so he'll roll to the wing and try and be ever so slightly in front of that red stone on the side.
Just hoping for that not quite perfect shot from the opposition.
Kevin Ouellette.
First of two stones.
Trying to keep this high side. Mike will get that roll over. They actually overcalled the sweep on that roll too far. Red is shot on the other side of the house. Maybe thinner, maybe they were trying to get it thinner and run into the side of the red.
I'm not sure.
I think the benefit was leaving the red there and rolling halfway
rolling
in front of it.
Yeah. I think they might be biting.
It is biting, yeah,
So-
but with red being shot, all Scott Webb has to do is
Put in
draw and not leave a double.
Yep, put in a number 2 somewhere. Make Kevin deal with it. Sometimes having the whole house to draw to causes more discussion than only one area to draw to. Just the sweepers coming up just for clarity to make sure they know where the rock needs to be so that we don't create that double. Just looking to draw probably back 8 foot. T-line to back 8.
Yeah, I think so. Make a very steep angle for a double. Anywhere in's great. It's going to be a risk if Kevin goes for the double and tries to get 2. If he gets the angle wrong, yeah, he's not even going to play the double. If he were to get the angle wrong on the double, it's a steal of 1. So a better play in his mind is to hit for a single.
So Kevin electing to hit for the single instead of drawing, maybe not comfortable with draw weight yet, do you think?
I think so. Who did he throw in the last end? He threw a couple hits. So yeah, that's probably why. Mike probably would like to be throwing that. He threw to the button on the first end.
Yeah, if Mike was still throwing last stones, we might see a draw here versus a hit. But the golden rule, call the shot the thrower can make. Sweeper's on it for line, but it looks like it's going to settle in and do the job.
So that's a singles in a game of 1 point ends. We're all tied after, or sorry, we're not all tied. Ouellette up 1 after 3.
So some action on the other sheets as our on-ice microphone can pick up the intensity out there as we work through into the 4th end. On sheet 3, Jamie Murphy against Jason Vaughn. Jamie Murphy with the lead of 3-2 as they play the 4th. Sheet 5 sees McDonald versus Sear. McDonald out of Ontario, Sear out of New Brunswick. McDonald with the lead of 4-1 as they play the 4th. And sheet 3, Mackenzie throwing the Yellowstones, scored 3 in the 3rd to make it 3-2 over Chad Stevens.
So starting us off, Logan Ward. This one over curled. He would have wanted that one on the center line, but it is in the top house, which is good. You don't. We saw in the 2nd end, Logan coming a little deep to the back 12 on his first, so that's an improvement there.
From a marketing perspective, we're seeing a lot of these nice full house logos. But you'll notice one of our ends is the traditional red, white, and blue bullseye house. And at the other end, we have some orange and black color scheme going on here. But the outline of the 4 foot is still there, so those that are playing doubles can still play. But certainly great for the clubs to get that marketing, that extra dollars to help support the clubs and get those in there.
Yeah, costs keep going up, as everybody knows, so we're always happy to partner with sponsors. We're happy to have our partners once again in this bond spiel, the Dave Jones Mayflower Cashspiel at Stanhope Simpson Insurance and Alexander Keith's Brewery. And we always appreciate the support of sponsors. And if you've been finding, Karen, you're at Lakeshore, and same thing. Some nice support from the community in terms of sponsorship and ads in ice and on the wall.
Fantastic. I even have a Selena Thompson sign on my wall.
That's not what I was looking for.
We promote some of your product, but yeah, it's always great to have the community. A lot of it's from within the club as well, so it's great that you see members giving back to the club through their professional opportunities.
It's the same thing that we find here at Mayflower. Your best supporters are usually going to be those that understand how important it is, and we've got some nice partnerships with companies around the north end. And
so yesterday you were busy here helping out with this event. I had the opportunity to do a wheelchair curling coach workshop.
Oh, nice.
So
that was yesterday. Yes,
yes,
I saw that.
so I learned to throw a stone from a wheelchair. It was quite interesting and great to see the perspective of the wheelchair curling. So if you're interested in trying wheelchair curling, if you're one of the parasport athletes in another sport or just want to get out and get active, Facebook has a Nova Scotia wheelchair curling page, so you can check out opportunities there. We are running a Learn to Curl program for the wheelchairs. That was a very nice tap and roll in.
And there's a few clubs here in the city, or maybe it's just our two that are wheelchair accessible.
I believe Halifax Curling Club is accessible as well.
We've got the ramps, yeah.
Yep. So a lot of curling clubs built before the 1900s, so may not be wheelchair accessible, but as upgrades become available, funding for things like that, or hosting events that will allow the modifications to occur to make buildings accessible.
So this end, we just saw a really nice hit and roll from Steve Byrne. Sorry, it was from Damien Nass. I was thinking we were already on second stones, but Chris just threw the first of two.
I believe he was trying to freeze into that one, but just came up a little bit short, but not a bad position for a stone. It's something you could promote later if needed.
The Yellowstone didn't end up frozen, so the Webb redstone is still shot. And some people would think, oh, you could just draw open and sit two, but that guard is pretty close to the center, and that Yellowstone is promotable, and there's another yellow in the back. So you have to be careful if you're Team Webb with hammer.
I suppose you have to ask right now, are we trying to steal one, or are we trying to force the one for Team Ouellette, or, you know, are we, if you're Team Webb, are we scoring our two, and how are we doing that?
Yeah, I think for Team Ouellette, it seems pretty straightforward. It looks like they're trying to force. They're leaving guards in play, and with that stone not on the guard not on the center line. Probably Team Webb will have a shot at the end for the single, you know, at this point. So they just, for Team Webb, it's really, what are we doing here? Are we going for a couple?
So the discussion was, do we rip off the yellow stones or draw behind our red stone? I think they've elected to draw around. Set up their deuce and hopefully maintain it through the end.
I must have a very obvious style of play, because my answer right now is, oh, just peel the front one, give ourselves a shot on the last. And that is how my team has played traditionally, is make sure your skip has a shot. So it's kind of like it's our mindset, and every team will have a different mindset. Sometimes they'll be a little more flexible, sometimes they'll be incredibly aggressive. This is the aggressive call, ignoring some control stones out front and putting a second one in. Does need to make the rings, and they'd love to outcount that one at the back.
As Webb looks back and forth to be a little bit of a cheerleader there and make sure they get it in there. I don't think they got second shot. As Kevin sizes up the angle.
Yeah, there is a double on the reds. So Chris can see.
Kevin looks like he's doing baseball signals.
Safe. That's not safe, I know. No. That's all I know. I think Chris can see half a rock, and he needs to hit about a half. Of course,
Kevin indicating where they need to strike to make that roll.
if you think half is hitting in the center of the rock, no, that's full. Half is where if the stones were sitting one in front of another, the front one would cover half the rock, but it actually hits kind of on the, if you were looking flat across the front, a quarter of the stone. We call it a half.
Or probably around the 2 o'clock position if you were looking at it from the top. For those of us that maybe visualize from the top of it more.
Got by the front one. Kevin, if they weren't going to make the double, Kevin didn't want a big roll because that could leave a double on the yellows.
Take away the raise.
Yeah, that's usable rock. Both are usable.
So right now they're both covering that 4-foot zone, so that makes it a little more difficult for Webb to score. So now he has to remove one of them.
The aim here for Steve Byrne is to have a little bit of a roll in behind that yellow stone, and really that'll effectively take away a raise on the yellow that is biting the center line.
A roll either way would work for them with hammer.
Absolutely. This one's not going to roll to the center, though. Might clip the back one on the way by. Almost. They might have been able to call that.
It hangs around as a biter, so that outcounts the front one for sure.
And important to note, too, that red, what they really wanted was that red to stick around. It does on the side. It's not out counting the back yellow, but that back yellow is open. So risky territory for Team Ouellette. They still have that stone out front, which is a good rock.
So they're looking at either promoting it or drawing around it.
I like the idea of having another yellow in the rings.
Sometimes a better guard is a number 2 rock, right?
Exactly.
Take that path away from the team with hammer as well.
I'm just starting to see, you know, red in separated positions. One's buried. One you're probably going to ignore because it's on the wings.
Seeing a lot more patient play with this new 5-rock roll, I think. People are waiting just a little bit longer to make a big move.
Yeah, and we're at a point in this end where the guards can be peeled, but they've been let to get there because of the rule, and then teams are leaving them there because they have to deal with what's in the ring. So you're totally right on that. This one's curling nicely, but looks a little heavy. Scott will see how far he can drag that back. Sets for second.
I suppose it's probably, I don't think you'd want it back of the 4-foot because then red would draw back down, so.
Yeah, it's deep enough. The issue that I see is if the yellow in the top 12 just biting is promoted onto the red, now you've got a second catcher in the back. So it's complicating things a little bit for Team Ouellette to deal with that red top 8-foot stone, and the 4-foot is still open. So that's the reason for the call here from Dean Darwin. It's starting to take its curl now, but taking its time.
Maybe sweep it here a bit at the end to try to get a little bit more finish out of it, get it a little half buried. Do you think there's a double there, Selena?
Oh, if you can.
Kevin calling Mike down to take a look at it. You always want the thrower to really have a good understanding of what's happening in the house when they're throwing their stones.
You'd have to, if you're doubling those reds, you'd have to hit the high one, the right-hand side one on the screen there, really thin.
To avoid any of those jams that you had mentioned?
Yeah, I think you're at big risk of jamming on that back center one.
And if you promote the yellow stone on the center line?
Well, you won't be shot out of that. I don't know if you can get to nose with enough weight to shoot it right into the crotch. Looks good from this angle. Actually, we're looking from behind the sheet, and our camera angle was looking there.
Well, they've elected to do something with the front yellow.
And it looks like a fair amount of weight. It's tight ice.
I think you've got a few options. If you're slightly off center, you're going into one stone.
Yeah.
If you're slightly off the other side of center, you're going into the other stone.
Yeah, I think ideally here, you can almost just nut it on the closer one. So floating out a little bit, but starting to come back now.
I don't know if it's going to come up enough. Catch that back red one. There we go.
And that was the important part. They needed that to come up so the red would go through that hole. Clipped one of the yellows, but yellow is second and third right now. So ended up.
And the red stone is open now as well.
So the discussion here for Team Webb, they have an exposed shot stone. The other team has a buried second shot stone. Not a great path to the 4-foot right now. Do you think Dean can get any piece of that yellow that was just raised? It doesn't look very accessible to me.
What if you just came and bumped it to the back 12-foot? Do you think?
I think you gotta.
I think you got to move it back somewhere.
And moving the red's not so bad either. Almost if you kind of throw this into the crotch. They're not totally even, but they're fairly close to even. You could almost hit either one first. Well, if you're playing hack weight, like they're saying, you want to hit the yellow first.
Would you ever do the in-turn outside-in draw? We haven't been out there.
Way around the yellows. Yeah, it's been going really straight on the wings. It's been hard to draw around corner guards, and especially rocks in the rings.
I think the danger here is that Team Ouellette would have a nose hit for, 3. So they need to do something with those French stones.
So this play is to try and hit the yellow stone first. Just needs to hit it a little bit first. Ended up hitting their own red first. They bumped the yellow out into the open slightly, but their red shooter is exposed.
Now there is that yellow stone at the back of the house that may be troublesome.
That had to curl like an inch, didn't it, to make that shot great. They would have promoted their the yellow further off to the side, and their own stone wouldn't have had as much momentum carried through it and wouldn't have gone through the rings. So Kevin, the only place Kevin can't hit this is nose.
And he's been favoring the hits today, so. I think you probably want to come off center just a little bit and make sure you clear it through the side of the house that has nothing in the back. That potentially could leave a double, though, for Team Webb.
I have to say this has been an interesting end for strategy in terms of aggressive and
Kevin had a little wobble on his slide, so I don't think he's quite as happy with the result as he
just got by that front yellow and makes the shot. Shooter rolls out. They wanted to keep that around, so Scott now has, I think Scott has a draw, actually. Outturn. They're looking at, I think they're looking at bringing that side one into play.
You want to bring that red one in. There's 2 yellow you have to deal with.
I see the outturn draw kind of from the right side of the sheet across. I know it'd leave a raise on the yellow, but you could kind of position it between the 2 yellows.
Yeah.
This is tough. It's
the path we
the
haven't
yellow's
gone.
partly buried. It's a new path. My concern is that this will run straight because no one has played this shot yet.
And if you're not anticipating what the weight is out there, it might be a slightly heavier path. You may overthrow it a little bit.
Yeah, he really wants to bring that side red into play, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he's, I don't even know if he sees the draw option.
Yeah. Front end's not going to talk about it. I didn't see them talk about it at all, and I do think it is a valid option to try and get 2 that way as well. This is the teams have been playing that out-turn path. It just seems like a natural. So I'm very curious to see what this will do. And what weight is being chosen here? It's a fair amount of broom. I think probably because it's a fresh path, they're expecting there to be more pebble and it to grab. So I'm really, really curious on this one. So this is Scott Webb's first.
They're on it hard from the beginning. On off is a good, sometimes a good combination. Is he going to catch the other one as well?
So a great effort, didn't end up getting what he wanted. Maybe needed a bit more weight. He hit the angle perfectly to actually chip off the back, but the yellows, yellow at the back, 8-foot, or sorry, 12-foot biting 8-foot remains shot. So Kevin removing the second shot stone here, the red, and will ideally be sitting 3. And that would be a force. I don't think there would be a shot for 2 unless he, even if he rolls out here, there's not really a shot for 2. That yellow at the back's buried now.
Both yellows are buried, yep.
Scott just not getting as much action on his shot there as he would have liked.
So we hear them calling the line. Rolls into the backpack.
So it overcurled. It almost was disaster if he had removed his own yellow. Would have left a shot for 2. I don't think Scott can come off that back yellow and get the one just in front of it. So just the draw here for the single.
The good news is he has the whole 8-foot to draw too. Nice to see a crowd there behind the glass.
It gets very exciting on playoff Sunday. And maybe the weather is a little more encouraging to come out today. So this is the last shot for Scott Webb here. Down 1, 4th end. Needs a draw to the, what do we need, half 8, full 8? Yeah.
Full 8 would definitely get it.
Super stay near this. Looks like it's all there. They just want to make sure they don't leave it alone, have anything happen. So that is, might have gone a little further than T-line, but great shot for the single point. And we are all tied at 2 apiece after 4 ends at the 2018 Dave Jones Mayflower Cashspiel quarterfinals. Team Fleming, or sorry, Team Ouellette, Team Webb.
And we're back getting started in the 5th end. Team Webb versus Team Ouellette. As we give you a quick update on the other games happening at the same time here in this men's quarterfinal of the Dave Jones Cashspiel. Sheet 3 has Team Murphy versus Team Vaughn, and they are all tied up at 3 apiece. as they play the 5th N. Sheet 5, we have Team McDonald versus Team Sear. McDonald is currently ahead 4-2 as they play the 5th. And on sheet 6, we have Team Stevens versus Mackenzie. And Mackenzie is ahead 3-2 over Chad Stevens.
So some nice tight games for our quarterfinals. It'll make for an interesting matchup in the semis.
Yeah, so the quarterfinals, you have the first qualifier playing the...
I'll read it right off for you.
Awesome.
One playing 7, that's Murphy Vaughn. Winner of that game will play the winner of our game, which is qualifier 3, Ouellette versus qualifier 8, Webb. So Murphy Vaughn winner goes to play Ouellette Webb winner in this first semifinal. And then qualifier 2 plays qualifier 6, that's Chad Stevens and Doug McKenzie. And winner of that game will play the qualifier 4 versus 5 position, and that is Ed Sear and Scott McDonald.
So very close games. As the crunch time gets here, I imagine some dollar value in it.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more 1-point scores on the board than we did earlier in the weekend. Teams being a little more careful maybe, but in this case, in our game, there's been lots of rocks in play and some nice shots. Actually, teams being forced and, you know, going for their 2 points, but going for having to make that shot for the single here.
We have to well, the teams also have been playing since Thursday evening, so comfort level in the ice and the weight and maybe the ability to call those finesse shots a little easier than earlier in the week as well.
Absolutely. So if you are just tuning in, or you maybe tuned in partway through that first half of the game, we are starting the 5th end here in the quarterfinal of the Ouellette Webb game. We're all tied at 2, Ouellette with hammer. At the 2018 Dave Jones Mayflower Cashspiel, presented by Stanhope Simpson Insurance, Alexander Keith's Brewery, and also Rockhead Wine and Beer Market. And this live stream that you are probably ever so happily watching and listening to,
because you didn't have to get up and get on the road early,
is brought by the Curling Store, your one-stop shop for all things curling. They're in Burnside, 109 Ilsley, if I'm not mistaken. I know where it is, and I never remember the address. Riddell, sorry.
Yeah, they're on Riddell.
Riddell.
The exact number I don't recall off the top of my head, but you know,
Riddell.
also a hub of curling information over there sometimes too. So you go over and you can always hear some great stories. And
I always have a good chat with Scott.
Yeah, what's going on over there? They're a great supporter of curling in Nova Scotia.
Oh, wonderful supporter, yeah. And so the Curling Store has partnered with Strong Coffee Media and also with 45 North to bring you this broadcast. That's why you see these nice videos of our curlers out here. So thank you very much to Sean and Chuck working the cameras. I'm Selena Thompson, and I'm with Karen Sullivan Skiffington, and we are so pleased to be your commentators this morning. It's been an interesting and close first half, a little bit more open in the first 2 ends, would you say, Karen, and some more rocks in play in the second and third?
For sure, and we anticipated the first couple ends being more open as teams adjust to the morning ice. Some teams may not have had the first draw. I'm not sure how the draw worked out, but maybe being, like you said, a little cautious, playing a tighter game. Some of these teams, if they advance to semifinals and then into finals, will be playing 3 games today. So an endurance game today. May need to conserve some energy at some point. Maybe that's why Kevin arrived in the second end, conserving some energy for a 3-day.
He's the one that least needs to conserve his energy.
For those that didn't see the first end, Kevin was absent. Not sure as to why. We did hear about some power outages and issues in our areas. We had high winds last night, so that could have been a factor.
I heard the other day, I think it was on Friday morning, there was quite a bad traffic jam up on the 102 coming inbound, and lo and behold, it was our organizer, Brent McDougall, had a car breakdown in the passing lane on the highway, and some other players and volunteers were mentioning that traffic was backed up, and Brent said, "It was me." He said he was white-knuckling it, very embarrassed, and didn't want to move or do anything until he got his vehicle pulled to the club.
Yep. Always a challenge, the traffic in our area. You always hope everyone's all right if there is a delay for whatever reason. So very open end this end.
Yeah, we're seeing it's an 8-end game, and we always do talk about that all-important hammer in 6 and scoring in 6 to ideally force in 7 and have hammer in 8. So in this case, Team Ouellette, I think they're just going to be looking for the blank here. No one likes to score in 5. Makes it the perfect time to score a whole bunch of points. But
yeah, if you could really set up for it.
The stats work in the favor of having that hammer, and even if you don't have hammer, scoring or stealing in the 6.
Yep. Of course, this is an 8-end game and no mid-game break, as you sometimes see at Briar's or Scotty's level. They play a 10-end game with a break after 5. But we'll make them play right through so we can hopefully run on time all day. The ice staff is all ready to go. I believe you kept one sheet off of play so that they could be ready to get the ice switched over between draws quite quickly.
Exactly, yep. I'm gonna make sure everyone gets out there, gets their games and gets enough rest in between. I know players will be running up to the kitchen after their game and having their snacks to refuel before they go back out on the ice if they're successful in the games this morning.
And I imagine nutrition and what you're eating and how much you're eating is always a factor in these longer events. I don't think I'd want to go out and play, especially as a front-end sweeper on a great big full turkey dinner.
No.
So something light and quick that will give you lots of energy. So still very clean as we enter into the third stones.
It's nice this end. We've seen a couple stones out to the wings that we haven't seen earlier in the game, so warming up those paths.
Do you think they're preserving some of the pebble down the center for later ends, or do you think it's starting to maybe wear down earlier than expected down the center?
I think they've just gotten some rolls that they maybe not, we're talking about preserving energy for the sweepers, maybe, as long as they're hitting it, because there's only one rock in play, not hitting it so hard, or not worrying about sweeping it so hard, and,
yep.
and they're getting a little more of those rolls.
You don't need the finesse shot, you can throw a little bit more weight. Some games I do know you start to see some pebble break down around the 5th, 6th, 7th end. Of course, the ice makers always try to make sure it lasts for the whole 8 ends. Didn't have the opportunity to speak to anybody on the ice making side this weekend, so I'm not sure what.
They've been dealing with humidity. I think that's the story. It was so rainy for the past 2 days. There's banners. We have a lot of national and world champion banners in our ice shed. And there was so much condensation. You weren't here last night, Karen, but the banners above sheets 3 and 4 at the peak of our ice shed, we have a vaulted ceiling. And the banners at the peak were getting so wet with humidity that they were, the water was condensing and actually dripping down onto the ice, and there were some wet spots. We had you could see where the banners were because there were little spots in the ice. That's gone. The ice has been scraped and prepared for today, so I think last night was the biggest struggle. It was after 2 days of rain,
yes,
the most difficult draw to manage. But speed's been keeping up, I think. I haven't been timing all of the rocks. There was a nice freeze there as we're just watching. I know we haven't talked much about this end. There was a nice freeze on the only stone that was still hanging around the back but not in, and that was played by Team Webb, but then Mike successfully removing everything. So an open house once again.
Yep, very cautious here, this midpoint of the game. I see it as cautious, just trying to keep it clean, and both teams trying, as you said, to keep that hammer.
Yeah, I think Team Webb would have loved to have forced in this end, but it wasn't looking that way, and there's not really anything they can do now. If they put up a guard, I think Kevin would go for the 2 points. So you just put one in the rings, put it in a spot that maybe the other team hasn't thrown a hit in. Just try and make it as difficult as possible for the hit.
So there's always like a point in the end where you got to make that decision, a decision point or a bailout point where this strategy is not working and we need to do something. Typically, you see that about halfway through the end.
Yeah, I think in previous play, you could leave it a bit longer. We're talking about the 5-rock rule a lot, and it was kind of on the second's last stone. If you had hammer to the mate's first stone was kind of where. And I think nowadays you're kind of having to make that decision a little earlier and saying, what are we going for? And kind of having that right around your second's first stone and at the latest their second stone. Because if you have a lot of rocks in play, it gets very hard to bail at third stones.
Yeah. And of course, that new skill set where the third now has to deal with a lot more rocks in play when they're in the hack. So perhaps more double peels, things like that.
Just a little bit of a change in shot selection. Still lots of run backs because
more rocks in play.
More rocks. You're going to have to shoot the guards back. So that's a very important shot. And if you're a competitive team and you don't play a run back, you're probably not going to be winning a lot of games. Other teams will just guard everything and you won't be able to do much. But at the end of the day, I think the draw is still that shot that
yeah, the team that has the draw weight will
gonna have to make it.
As we saw, Mike put it right on the lid in the first end. So
exactly, it's so important, and the whole team is paying attention to that. It's if any shot you're always watching the other team play compared to yours to see how the ice is changing. It's for the draw. You're not as worried about the speeds for hits, but you are worried about them and paying such close attention to those splits and how the rocks are traveling and how they're finishing and all those kinds of things with the draws.
So much to keep track of as a competitive curler.
We didn't even talk about the rock books.
Yeah.
Scott Webb here, that one just sticking out a little bit, rolling out. Not a huge concern. He would have liked to stick around. You don't ever, I think, really want to give the other team an open draw.
Especially where Kevin's been throwing hits, I would think you'd want to keep him hitting, and then near the end of the game when he finally has to throw a draw, the error factor might be a little higher.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking that was Scott's first shot. That was his second, so this is just a blank attempt.
Okay.
Kevin didn't give him an open draw. Didn't really give him anything to do.
So they changed the turn. I guess you're just maybe taking an opportunity to take a look at the ice, what it's going to do with this weight if you need it later on.
I think we've seen more of this outturn going away from the glass. But even when you're throwing it through, you see Kevin there watching the line. They're seeing how it breaks off the center line. So this is less break than I was seeing earlier in this event with hit weight coming off the center line. I had seen some really move off the line and then straighten up, but that one had more of an even curl throughout.
So quick end, very clean. Team have a quick little meeting before they throw their first stone.
Updates on other sheets for you. If I could remember.
Well, sheet 3 is just posting the score, so.
Yeah, I think that was a score of 2 for Jamie Murphy, so he will lead Jason Vaughn 5-3. On the other side of our feature sheet, that is McDonald versus Sear. Sear leading, or sorry, McDonald leading 6-2 after 5. They're playing the 6th. And in the Stevens-McKenzie game, Doug McKenzie picking up a single in the 5th to lead 4-2 over Chad Stevens. All of our scores are updated live on worldcurl.com if you don't want to wait for us to remember to update you.
Of course, all the games in the 6th end, so we're all running pretty close together. Our game just became a 3-end game as we go tied into the 6th end.
Yeah, and you can really see the importance for Team Ouellette of blanking that end. If you think that every team, or that the teams will score with hammer, that leaves Ouellette with 2 hammers to 1, hammer in 6 and 8. Of course, Scott's not going to want to let that happen. He'd love to steal here. So see how hard he goes for the steal. We're seeing the center guard put up.
So I imagine we'll probably see 2 center guards with this end really trying to steal with this new 5-rock rule.
The corner here. So this is where that 5-rock rule is going to start coming into play. We're getting to the end. The team with hammer is probably going to go fairly hard for their 2, knowing that if they get 1, that's okay. They'll try and force in the next end and have hammer tied coming home.
Both teams wanting to score this end.
Yes. The team without, so Team Webb really wants to, sorry. Tongue-tied. Team Webb would like to, they like to steal or force. And steal and force become similar because you're crowding the center of the rings, but you don't want to try and force so hard that you force Team Ouellette into a few because you're focusing so hard on that positioning and kind of forgetting about rocks around the side. So it's always interesting to watch. And I think this call was for the draw, so maybe not the second center guard here, Karen.
Option, I guess if the draw is not perfect, you can guard it after. Put your second guard on then.
What I'm most curious to see is if Kevin's going to call a second corner guard on the opposite side, same side, or call the draw. So this call from Scott makes me think that he's not going to go super hard for the steal.
I think we might see Kevin go around his own. Depending on if this stays open or not. Let's go slip behind the tee line. And interesting.
So if that was top 4, well, either way, I think Kevin might have been tempted to go around that center. It's trying to keep things a little open here. I'm a bit surprised being back 4. It's not in as great a position. He could come around top 4. He could go around his corner guard.
I think, though, if you're coming around, you're really reducing the scoring area because red will come down on top of you again. And you're trying to score 2, so you want as much of the house as you can have available to you.
Really going to get this by that center guard. They can't remove it from play, so even if it ticks, just like that.
Not a bad result.
Red's not removed, so yellow is safe to say the red won't go back. Wasn't out of play. And that works as a tick shot. Kind of works, doesn't it?
An unplanned tick shot, Although opportunity for Webb to get a more perfect guard on this. Some intense action on the other sheets on this quarterfinal morning here at Mayflower Curling Club.
Sweepers are working. Dean and Damien working really hard to get this one over.
Just over will do it.
Ooh. End to end.
Stone is still wide open though.
They didn't really have too much of an option there. They want to keep stones in play to try and force and shrink that scoring area. That was the reason for the guard call. But there are corner guards, and that is now a high guard. So I think right now probably things would be favoring Team Ouellette to have a good chance to score.
Looking to try and roll behind cover here.
They wanted to use that corner guard, rolled a little bit that way. Not quite enough, but keeps it in the rings. Probably not advantageous for Team...
Probably another
well,
stone.
I was going to say not advantageous for Team Webb to roll that way, but the draw path is kind of blocked by that high guard, the in-turn draw path from left to right.
Yeah. You could raise your own as well. But I think after another stone here, we're going to see the rocks are going to be above the tee line.
This one is breaking harder than some of the other hits we've seen. Damien went down, but I don't think he touched the stone. Good save.
No, I think it was a controlled landing.
Could feel it happening, and you just tighten up your hips.
Just
stay up a little longer.
A couple rocks that he had to crawl over. Didn't quite get over them.
What's the most interesting save you've seen for a fall? How did someone fall that protected the stone?
I don't know if I could narrow it down. I'm usually more worried about the person than the stone.
You're not really focused on the game, though. I'm just kidding. I'll tell you. I could tell you mine, but I know the person who did it is watching our stream right now. Well, let's just say it was a turtle. A turtle fall.
I'm sure.
But she didn't touch a rock.
Very good.
And it wasn't nationals.
Nothing like having all the eyes on you when you have an incident like that.
So the shooter rolled out. I didn't know they could get by the guard that tight and actually roll out. So it leaves an opening here for Team Ouellette. But they don't have that in-turn around the corner. So they're playing a tap on their own, are they?
It looks like it. Because we are throwing an in-turn at it. So I think we're trying to raise the yellow back. The way the red and yellow guards are staggered, it's very difficult for yellow to get in there without promoting their own.
I don't want to tap the red.
Waits up a little bit if I'm reading Mike's hand signals the right way.
Actually bounced the shooter up.
So yellow now has a centerline guard, which they could promote. Few guards and paths for Webb to take. So we'll try this wide in-turn path.
Yeah, this will be the first time we've seen this in the game so far, I think, Karen.
We've seen a few hits, but I don't think we've seen any draw. The good thing is the red guard that you see is very high, so there's lots of room to come around that. You might even come around that red and get buried behind the yellow. Yeah. Looks like it might be a little heavier than they were expecting.
We'd love that to be just above the tee line, not behind. It is fully buried. I think that actually over-buried. Is that guard so high?
So now is there an out-turn draw down to that?
Through the hole?
Yeah.
I wonder. I think it's I think it's tight for a hit, but I think a draw or a heavy draw is there.
Although you could just follow the same path because the redstone did clear that front red by quite a bit. There's a good angle on it. Of course,
looks like a tight port from here, doesn't it? But there is a lot of distance between that red high guard and the yellow tight. And they're looking at it. Kevin likes it. I think Mike doesn't as much.
I suppose if you're tight, you can remove the high guard.
Yeah, I think the high guard's actually the one to remove. They didn't look at any kind of raise on the yellow, but that actually opens up the draw path as well, the out-turn draw path, raising this yellow stone, the only yellow stone. So probably a little bit of weight played on this. It's not as tight as an up-weight shot, but certainly a weight shot here. Maybe control.
I was even thinking hack or so.
Line's very important. Trying to get by the top one, and then they'll let it go.
Oh.
Just wick. Oh, and how unfortunate to raise the other red in. Oh. I don't think that was
Definitely not
on
in the
the
plan
radar.
book. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to hit the top one, you got to hit it thicker, but they were trying so hard to get by. So they didn't end up removing the top red. It still sits.
I think it's now
Off
because they
center
also
line.
removed the red stones in the back. The back red one on the right side of center, I think, is still covered.
No, very, very unfortunate.
Yep. Team Webb looking for that forced error, I guess. So now they're taking a look at that yellow stone that Ouellette can promote into the 4-foot. How much of a danger that could be for them.
Not looking like a bad house for Team Webb right now. Things have changed a lot this end. It was looking very favorable for Team Ouellette, but that nice draw, really.
Yeah, so Team Webb is looking at, Kevin has the tap back on the yellow, he has the in-turn draw around. So which shot is the one that they want to protect and, maybe force Kevin to one shot or the other?
They're playing into the rings. I think it's a fairly hard spot to get to, though.
The yellow stone's almost in the way, as you said earlier.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they'd love to steal, so I think that's what's dictating this a little bit. It's going from, maybe being able to force to perhaps being able to steal here.
If you could steal a few.
They were by the guards.
It's curling quite quickly now.
Yeah, they wanted it to just be off center. I think it curled a little more than they wanted to. Ended top house. There is a hole there, I believe.
Blocks off that in-turn draw around, though.
It does. Can you thread the needle and make a double on those reds and not spin up?
Would it be better to run your Yellowstone back into them?
Yeah, I like that option, Karen.
So of course, this is Mike's Fleming, the second shot. The danger with threading the needle, if you're ever too tight and take your own guard off, there's none of your stones there to work with on the next one.
I think better to miss this by actually removing the yellow, but it's kind of a rock you have to work with right now, isn't it? I think I'm with you. I like the run.
I think with the run, you have the opportunity to leave another stone somewhere in the front that you can use again.
Exactly, yeah. And if you hit a high side, open up a bigger hole. And the miss would be high side. But Mike's going to try and thread the needle on this. I think if he can get it through and just chip off the higher red in the back 4-foot and jam on the back. This one's going to be close. Curling a lot now. Are they on the red?
They're through the hole.
So the Webb stone did its job.
I think if you're Webb, you want something in that same area. Maybe a little tighter to the 4-foot.
I think so. Kevin's got 2 stones remaining, and he's going to have to use that yellow, I think, at some point here.
As we just watch the discussion here.
Same discussion as before, huh? But they're coming at it the other way.
Yeah. Discussion is just where that placement of the stone is and how important it is to get it in the right line. I don't think you can completely block both shots, the run back, the needle threading, or
that darn
come
high
around.
guard's in the way.
Yeah.
those do get in the way sometimes when you need to make a bit of a finesse shot.
Ideally, you'd want to be around that top 4 foot. You'd probably block a lot of those angles. So we went from a very quick, clean end to
the opposite. Two of the other 3 games are playing the 7th. Chad Stevens with a big 3 in the 6th to take the lead 5-4 over Doug McKenzie. Actually, Doug McKenzie's not here today. I think he's got a little bit of a bad knee, I heard, so Shea Steele's skipping.
Always want to make sure, especially early in the season, you take care of those injuries if they're starting to creep in. Yeah, so after some discussion with the front end, I think we would have burned through all the timeouts this end if we were playing a different competition.
So I think what Scott's thinking here is that Kevin's probably going to play the raise no matter what. And if he puts a stone in that 4 foot area, it's just a bigger pocket for the yellow to be angled into. And that's why you and I liked that run back on the last shot, because there were lots of options. You hit it on the high side and it had 3 different stones to go into. So the change here is for a guard.
Yeah, and he's also taking the path away that Kevin just had Mike throw.
Exactly.
So potentially sending him on a different path, a different shot. You always want to try to eliminate duplicating the exact same shot.
Because humans do this funny thing called learning. Usually they'll
learn and adapt, right?
Learn from the first, yeah. But it is tough. Sometimes there's an obvious shot, and then there's times like this where you go, what on earth do I do? What is the other team going to do? And sometimes I think the answer is just pick a shot and throw it.
I mean, ideally, I think they could see all the possibilities Kevin had, and it's just eliminating the easiest shot. So you're trying to make Kevin throw the most difficult position.
Well, that one plugs the hole. It actually
changes the
worked out. It's in the line of sight on the angle as well, isn't it?
Changes that run back a little bit as well.
Might have taken it away.
I don't know, because if you hit the yellow just slightly on the outside of nose, you're sending it into that pocket, right?
I know, but can you get it just outside of nose enough? You'd have to just skinny that red guard. Might have worked out pretty well.
Yep. Great stone.
Soft weight tap could do it too, though. Sweepers in the hack looking to see what they can see. I think that stone actually did block both shots, the hole and the raise.
Which forces them to the in-turn draw from outside in.
You wouldn't play the in off the side? No, I'm kidding. Maybe on the last shot.
Well, those 2 yellows that rolled over to the edge of the sheet may come into play at some point.
So we're in a similar situation to going, we got not a lot of options.
The other team putting their jackets on. They're expecting a little bit of discussion this shot, I think. So rocks in play causes a lot more discussion. I'm not sure if the team's facing the on-ice microphone so we can pick it up or not.
Two stones for Team Ouellette remaining, 1 for Team Webb. Ouellette would love to score here, but right now they're facing 2 Webb counters in the back 4 foot.
I would think it's too late in the end to even be thinking about removing guards.
I mean, the only reason to do that would be to give yourself a shot on the last, but you got to think that Scott Webb would just put another one, probably even top rings, top 8 foot, and just blocking off all the paths to the button.
Mike lining up that yellow raise, so I think if you could ever get it into the top of the button.
I actually think they're looking at the double raise, red, yellow. So hitting where Mike's broom is, actually maybe a little thinner than that, and then redirecting, so crossing the face of the yellow and directing it into the pile. Even if it's not made and you lose your shooter and those 2 stones, that the whole goal of this would be to get a shot on the last. I don't mind it. I don't think Kevin wants to play that in-turn draw. We did see Team Webb make it successfully, but Team Ouellette hasn't played that.
Kevin hasn't thrown a lot of draws yet this game either.
No, he's certainly shown more comfortable with the hits, you're right.
So a red onto yellow to send the yellow into the pack of red at the back of the 4 foot. Not a stick down.
So shoot, he needed that to curl a bit more to roll the shooter. It does open up the outturn side, which is the higher red rock, but just like we speculated, a rock in the top 8 foot, maybe even biting top 4 to sit 3 right around that button. We'll put a whole
just trying to minimize
bunch
the
of pressure
scoring
on.
opportunity, like the area that Kevin could score with. So if you could put it top 4 foot, Kevin has to pretty much draw the button.
Oh yeah, this is complete steal territory, I think. We saw a in-turn come around that high guard, but that high guard was closer to the center line, so I don't even know if the button's accessible on that in-turn side. And if this is made, I think the entire button's going to be blocked off.
And there is a tendency when there is backing, excuse me, to tend to put that extra 6 inches onto it that you may not need for the curl. And anticipating it hitting the backing. And then you don't end up with the line.
You can't on this ice.
Yeah.
It is going straighter with that extra weight and that extra rotation. This one looks good, though. I think the sweepers don't mind the weight. They were going a little bit for line there. Now they'd like this to stop.
Oh, look, Rock's listening to you.
Turns out nicely. I think they might have liked that a little further to the left, not to curl quite to center line, because the side of the button is open.
Although it is a very small scoring area for Kevin to get to.
Yeah, not easy.
Yeah, certainly.
There you see a good example of it.
Yeah, if it had been a little bit more off center, it would have blocked the freeze opportunity and it would have been a cold draw. Kevin now could potentially draw down to a little piece of that back red. Team Webb played this end very well to force this.
And it really was Team Ouellette threw first and second stones, but then Mike's just went the wrong way with a wick on the guard and leading to this difficult shot. Last rock, Kevin Ouellette needs to bite a piece of the button that is barely visible for the single point.
Very difficult to get in the hack and visualize something that you can't see.
It's wide right now. I'd be tempted to, they're just sweeping for weight right now to get it to tee, but it's not getting the line to get to the 4 foot, and that'll be a huge steal of 3 points for Team Webb. So steal of 3 in the 6th. Team Webb leads 5-2 in this quarterfinal with 2 ends to go.
Some of the other games that we're keeping an eye on here on this quarterfinal draw. On sheet 5, we have Team McDonald versus Team Sear. Team Sear took 2 in the 6th, but they are still trailing 6-4 versus McDonald out of Ontario. 7th end was blanked, so no score there, leaving it at 6-4. Over on sheet 6, we have Team Stevens versus Team Mackenzie. They are still at 5-4. Chad Stevens leading, and they finish up playing the 7th. And when we have an update on sheet 3, we will let you know. So I imagine Team Webb will want to keep a very clean end this end.
Yes. Up 3, playing 7. You'd love to keep it clean and force a single, have hammer up 2 coming home, even giving up 2 points here. That was a big, huge steal in that all-important 6 end like we were talking about.
Would you play a little bit more guards maybe to force Ouellette to take 1?
I mean, I think Kevin might not want to wait and try and go blank and go down 3 with hammer and 8. So he's going to go pretty hard for his 2. So I think keeping play in the rings will be important for Team Webb here. I'd be okay giving up 2. I mean, tied coming home with hammer is great. You don't want to give up 3. You'd love to be up with hammer coming home.
So we'll see the free guard zone used by Team Ouellette. So wanting to score 2 or 3, we will see at least 2 guards, I would think.
Yes. What was your rule? You need to score 3, you need 2 guards?
Yeah. Team Webb coming back down to their own, I guess. I'm thinking you probably want this top 12, top 8.
It's hanging out there, isn't it?
Yeah, you might even want to take it way back.
Don't really want to sit them beside each other. It's better through than anything at this point.
Through's a good option. So for those of watching that would wonder why we think through is a good option, that just avoids having the rocks behind the tee lines as potential catchers for the yellow stones. I remember working with one team and we spent a whole practice just working on top 4 or through. So if the sweepers determined it wasn't going to be top 4, then they had to make sure it was through. Team Ouellette going around this corner guard. Comes up a bit light.
So if anyone was watching on the CBC stream and was having some audio issues, it seems like things are working now. And so I know you were watching, but I'd just like to welcome Karen Sullivan-Skiffington and myself, Selena Thompson, back to you. We're just talking about the strategy this end. With a big steal of 3 after a tough miss from Kevin Ouellette on his last, trying to shoot for 1 in the 6th. So down 3, and now we see a couple corner guards. And we're just mentioning that for Team Webb, trying to keep the play in the rings. They're honestly, you know, coming home with hammer. They could tolerate up to giving up 3 points. Of course, you never want to. You want to be up 3 with hammer coming home. So keeping play in the rings, trying to prevent Team Ouellette from scoring anything more than a single.
Kevin making his way down. I guess you're at the point of the end where you really got to make that decision. Where are we going with?
Yeah, when we were talking about this earlier, is it? I don't think the option is for a bail end. We were talking about that earlier. When do you make your decision what to do, when to bail?
Too early.
And typically it's happening at second stones, but this is more of a strategy session. How is this end going to go? What are we going to do? It's a little unfortunate that Logan's second guard ended up even with its first, because those are
the intention I think was to get around behind. It was just a little light. So discussion if you want to try to go around or set up a guard on the other side. And at what point do you start to deal with the red rocks in the rings? And I'm sure Kevin probably defers to Mike quite a bit, where Mike was a skip himself for a while.
I mean, they could still play. We're on to second stones, and appeal will be available, but you could put a guard on the other side and then see. I think we'll
Yeah, I think if you put a
see
guard
Team
on,
Webb peel. I think they're up 3 points. They don't really want to risk guards in play. So they're putting the guard on the same side.
that just avoids that double peel. If you go on the far side, the opposite side, with a single guard, Webb will peel off the 2 that you have there.
Yep.
So do you want to guard one stone more than the other with this? I think if you put it right in the center, you're set up a run back.
Yeah, there's a straight back double peel either way here on either of the 2 yellows. The idea is to keep one of your guards. I don't think there's any way to get rid of all unless the 2.
So the team throwing doesn't seem to think they can get them all.
The other concern, if you if you nose or hit a little on the outside of that top yellow stone, you could run
Something back
the
into
red
your
back
own.
into your own. And even if you hit the center line side and you go onto the left hand back yellow, you could do the same thing. So this is
Looks like he's just putting
this is a
another red
guard.
one in.
This is aggressive. And we're seeing this more with the 5 rock, not because they can't peel in this case, but the thinking is more like, oh, we put our 2 stones, they're in a great place, guard them. The other team's going to have to deal with them.
Yep. And I can't get rid of all 3 without endangering my stones, so just
Protect
ignore
them.
it. Yep. He's going to block the path, I think, a little bit to get behind the yellow as well.
I like this call. I really do. It's so aggressive. Like, it's not what I would typically have played. I'm more of the, keep it clean, give yourself a shot. I like to keep the score
Yep.
close. But up 3, that's a bold call.
And this Webb team hails from Alberta. They may have seen the 5 arc rule a little bit more. I know some events out west were using it last year and the last couple seasons, so maybe a little bit more familiarity with the 5 rock rule and this more aggressive style. So Kevin now has to deal with these rocks, as we said. Looks like you can see about 3/4 to 7/8 of this red stone.
But it's the tough work is here for Team Ouellette. They're really going to have to make some shots this end. They need to get by this front one.
Don't think they are.
A little wick. And that's really cutting away their chances at coming around that corner as well.
Yeah, they played the weight down a little bit. I think they wanted to make sure they kept their shooter around and just over-curled on them. They did manage to roll a yellow into the rings, but I think Team Webb will make short work of that. Go hard on this.
So this is cleanup. They don't want to touch their stones in the 4-foot. I'm just looking at the World Curling Tour YouTube comments here. We've got a lot of people up early this morning watching. We're really happy to have everybody.
Imagine the crowd from Alberta is up very early to tune in.
And if you tuned in late in the game and we're looking at a tie game and you're from Alberta cheering on the Webb boys, you probably saw that steal of 3. And we're feeling a little bit more comfortable this end as been able to keep things into the rings and kind of block off that left side of the sheet. Really, there's not a great way in there, even though there's 3 yellow guards, so that red play seems to have worked. The only way in, of course, is
hit and roll.
A hit and roll. If it can be buried here, it's be a great shot from Mike.
Don't know that you'd ever want to take that in-turn very wide draw around there or not. Suppose if you had to.
That one curling up now, going for a nose.
Leave himself in front of the other red slightly. But I think there's enough room there. Webb can get rid of it. Doesn't really matter if he stays around. Probably better to roll completely out.
So the hit made. Now this is the tough shot that we were talking about. I don't know that this can be buried.
Yeah, that red stone's very tight to the rings.
We got our friends at Peak Curl, 4 p.m. So you're European timing.
Very cool. They're just wrapping up their day over there.
The stone's looking a little heavy, says Mike, and they don't need to sweep it to get by, but we'll see Logan go on this really hard to finish it. They're not as worried about being ahead of the tee line as they are about being shot. They just need a protected stone in the ring. So Logan got that a little bit over buried, actually. You can see it's actually a little more than all behind the red.
So
and that's where you have to go, really, is the back house. They cleared the guard by a bit, so maybe it was there for tee line, but
I think it still would have been difficult at tee line. I think you still would have been showing a little bit.
So Scott's got a draw here. Because that's back house, and you throw it back house for Team Ouellette because you kind of have to, but you know that Scott's going to have the freeze down to take that away.
But Scott can almost be anywhere in that path. He doesn't need, he's not the one that needs to be buried.
Exactly, yeah. The only thing he really doesn't want to do is kind of leave half open, almost even, or just a bit above the red stone and leave a double.
I think even top 12 would work for him. He would leave a stone to run back with his last rock if he needed it and block that draw path off.
So they would have just watched Mike's stone.
Line looks good.
A little heavier, but it took that curl and just pushed the yellow stone back. I think that does the trick. There's no double for Kevin to sit 2 anywhere here. So he's just looking at, he knows that he's going to have to deal with that stone in the 4-foot. So looking at the hit and roll versus another draw. He could still play another draw. It's just hard to be buried and shot.
Yeah, if you play the draw, you still have to deal with the other 2 red rocks.
Yep.
So you got to get rid of one of them now, I think.
I think you could outcount the back one. But then Scott can guard his own and take the whole end away. So Kevin's saying, oh, I'll have to deal with this now. So you got to make the hit and roll. Can't roll too far.
Yeah, if you could roll and just bite the edge of the 4-foot, you'd get your number 1 shot under cover.
Just nibbling the 4, yeah.
Really calling the line here.
It's really curling. Will we get a piece of it?
Ooh.
Did you think there was a hole there, Karen?
Well, he did rub it a little bit,
goodness.
and it just sent it right through the hole. Very unfortunate.
I didn't see that one coming.
Opportunity for Webb to really close off this end.
I mean, regardless, it way over curled.
You
That was
think-
rolling out anyway.
You think he got in the hack and maybe second guess the weight he needed to stay around with the roll?
I'm not sure. We have seen some with the lower weight
Take off.
taking off. And the up weight staying so straight that actually hits on the wrong side. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're right on that.
I'm sure we've all done that, put the broom down, got in the hack and go, ooh, I don't know if that's the right weight I was thinking of for that ice.
Once or twice.
Yeah, you sometimes just need to trust that it was the right ice and throw the weight that you anticipated. Sweepers seem to be happy with the weight. Now just a line
is
positioning.
Just a guard. Does not need to be in.
Don't want it to over curl.
So how do you? The tighter is actually working better. They didn't want that to curl quite as much. It's a very tight port here for the draw, but this is all Kevin has.
It's almost a piece of the button. It's a very tight hole.
And I think that red stone that Scott just threw actually outcounts the yellow at the back. Not that that will necessarily come into play if, if Kevin wicks that top one to steal a 3. It's I think we'll see the shakes there, but he's going to try and get this right to the button. Similar path to what Scott just threw, a little wider. So this is Kevin Ouellette down 3, drawing for 1 in the 7th end. Logan Ward on the left, Chris Grancelli on the right. Sweepers.
Chris hopped on that pretty early.
Navigating the port here.
They buy that red, and now do they have the weight?
They have to go for weight. They played that close to the port. This one's moving. They want to keep it there and it just comes up a little short. It's a steal of 1 for Scott Webb. That'll extend the lead to 6-2. Really close on that shot. They
That
had
was
to
very
sweep it for
close.
weight, but they couldn't for line.
And we saw Chris get on it a bit earlier. I don't know if he had waited a second, if that would have, if you would have been able to sweep later for weight, or if
It's
you had
so
to do it at that
hard.
point.
The sweepers want to go and they have to wait for the line call. It's really, really tough. So 6-2, Team Ouellette with hammer playing 8. And on the other sheets, I didn't see the end. We do have a final in the McDonald-Sear game. I'm going to hazard a guess. They were up with hammer playing 8 that it was Scott McDonald.
Sure, if you turn
Well,
on to this
We'll
World Curling.
confirm, but look on worldcurl.com. We'll do the same. Playing 8, Stevens versus Mackenzie. Stevens, I mentioned, with that 3 and 6. Mackenzie rebounded with a 2 and 7 to lead 6-5. Stevens down 1 with hammer, playing 8.
And they're in the Skips Rocks over there, so we'll have the
And
game final soon.
Murphy Vaughn. Murphy with a steal of 1 in the 7th, extending their lead 6-3. So we'll try and keep you updated. Those games will finish before ours, or might finish before ours.
So we should really see the use of the 5 rock rule this end with Kevin down by 4.
I think in your rule, he needs 3 guards this time.
Yes.
Score 4 to tie. It's tough. And for Team Webb, keep it clean. They're going to put this first stone in the rings, and hopefully sweepers can get it there.
The interesting thing with the free guard zone rule, if you try to discard in this draw and you come up light and you put the guard up, you can take the guard off if it's your own, right?
You could peel your own, but guess what, Kevin? Kevin knows better. He's going to guard it.
Well, if I can't do 3 guards of my own color, maybe I can use one of theirs.
Exactly.
Kevin needs rocks in play.
Yeah, that red stone's better through than there, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't see the call initially. We were updating from the other sheets, so I don't know if he did
No,
did that intentionally or if it was
top
called
four.
for. Yeah.
Call for top 4.
So they always say if you don't like your first shot, you can peel it with the second. So of course, Kevin Ouellette doesn't want him to peel his own rock. So he'll try to put a second guard on it. Checking on that game on sheet 5.
Scott McDonald didn't take it to the final stones in the 8th. McDonald with the win. The final was 6-4. They'll play the winner of Stevens McKenzie. I've seen Scott McDonald playing a lot on the tour this year. I heard some people talking at this event that they're doing well in the points.
Very good. So they're out of Ontario. So lots of events out
A
west.
little bit of competition in Southern Ontario. Few teams I heard that play out of some of the rinks there.
Yeah, there's just so many teams in Ontario and West that they get a lot of opportunity to play in events and play a lot of teams. Atlantic Canada, the number of teams per capita is a little bit less, so it's always great to have these teams come down and share some of their knowledge with us, even if it's indirectly.
Yeah, and the Dave Jones Mayflower Cashspiel has been a WCT event for a number of years here, and we actually have a second WCT event happening this year in Nova Scotia. It's actually in 2 weeks' time. It's at the Halifax Curling Club, so if you're looking for more curling, that is another WCT event that you can tune into. And there's a nice draw from Logan. A little surprised that didn't use the 5-rock rule and put up another guard. I know that red is in the back, but
well, I think last end it didn't work out well for them. Perhaps they've
That's
tried
fair.
to move more to the center. Although Team Webb, if they sit on top of this, the scoring area is going to be very minimal for Team Ouellette, and they'll be struggling all in to get those other points in there.
For Team Webb, it's a countdown. We need to remove 5 yellow stones, and right now that one that's a guard is probably not going to be scoring, so 4 will do it. 4 from the rings, and at the very least eliminate those stones' chance of counting. That one just came up enough. I think it's can't be hit, but a freeze is available, or a little tap. You see Kevin indicating.
Yeah, you don't want to throw too much weight. You might lose your stone, and you need as many as you can in there. Mike indicating the weight might be a little bit high, so we're not catching that curl.
And we've seen that pretty consistently when the weight's up. Just wicks the side, makes the freeze even better for Team Webb, actually.
I think Webb now has an opportunity to get that yellow out of there.
They do. They may just go up and peel, though. It's open up things and just hit.
So taking a quick look over on sheet C. Team Mackenzie being skipped by Shea Steele right now. Trying to outdraw 2 red stones that are in there. And yellow sitting 1. So we'll get you updated on that. They're in their last rock, so.
Yeah, Mackenzie leading without hammer, sitting 1 stone to come for Chad Stevens.
And Chad, of course, has the number 2 and 3 points sitting there.
There's a lot of junk out front, though.
So we're slightly distracted with the other game at the moment.
More of the same for Team Ouellette, though, here. Put another one in. They just have to lob these into the
Force a miss
4
from Team
foot.
Webb.
Appeal was made successfully from Steve Byrne, so his job is done in terms of his throws.
A little bit movement, just change the angles. So do you take the guard off that's your own color, or it's kind of nice to have that to run back into the pack?
Well, I think in the interest of removing yellow stones, you probably do have to remove it. It's an aggressive call to draw in there. I don't, Ouellette doesn't have a lot of shots anyway.
Yeah, he did indicate removing the yellow biter at the back as well. Just eliminate the possibility of a big end. So they're gonna take a minute to talk about this.
They have a little bit of a safety net, that 4-point buffer. So for counting the rocks, Yellowstone's Ouellette needs to score 4 to tie. There are 2 stones in the 4-foot, but there are also 2 red stones in there, and 4 yellow stones to come. So the thinking is, if you peel your own guard that's protecting the 4-foot, does that actually help or hinder you? I'm kind of just peel it.
Yeah, and
I know I've said that before.
yeah, I believe that
easier.
Yellowstone at the back is also can be a counter. So there was a quick indication, and then they pretty much ignored that one.
Yeah, they can't run you can't run the guard into it. I really just think straight peel, and I mean the angles aren't great for removing the 2 yellows in one shot, but you can probably get one of them. You can get a little bit of a drag effect by hitting the high side. You can almost try and do it now, hit that top yellow, and if you peel the guard, that's fine.
Yeah.
Play the in turn, so right in front of Darwin.
You're keeping them from scoring points at this point. So if your rocks leave the rings as well as theirs, that's
fine. Yeah,
that don't need to keep yours.
You have 4 stones, and you have to remove 4 of theirs. I just think this overly complicates things, but I see the merit in it, that's for sure.
I certainly think you throw the intern at it, and you've got a couple of options.
And by doing this, you're forcing Team Ouellette to have to make a play on something out front, and then that stone that's thrown won't be a potential counter. I get it both ways. I just I hate putting more rocks in play when you're up 4. Oh, and we had Chad Stevens scored 1 in the 8th end of one of our other quarterfinals, so that's a tie game. So Doug McKenzie, actually being skipped by Shea Steele right now, has Hammer tied in an extra.
We see the Webb team come down and sit on top of it again.
Well, that's what they called.
I guess it comes down to how many yellow stones can Kevin get in the 4-foot if you do something like this.
Yeah, I think you need to pop open those back reds like he's indicating right now, but it's going to leave your shooter exposed. Chris coming down, smile on his face. I don't know if he's as optimistic as the rest of the team.
Probably in his mind saying, yep, that was a pretty good shot by them. What are we going to do? So some of these stones are close enough that the drag effect will come in.
I think the drag effect favors the red stones right now. If you wail on the high side of the red that's in the top 8, it's going to push it back onto the other yellow in the back 4-foot.
Yeah. Of course, if you're Kevin, you don't really want to touch the outturn side yet.
No, and playing any weight on that top red, you lose your shooter, I think, too. So this is a softer weight. This is definitely the way to keep the rocks in play, keep your shooters around.
It's all about setting up the angles that you can potentially squeeze all the red out and leave the yellows as the only ones in there.
Exactly. So this is just, I think, a draw weight. This one is curling right out of Mike's hand. Looks like it's already on the front to me.
Yeah.
But they need to sweep it and roll the shooter out of the way. Ooh.
Of course, Webb want to make sure that that red stone's back far enough the yellow can't utilize it to roll into the button. Kevin taking a look from the side there. I don't think he's too happy.
I think if that red hadn't gone quite so far back, there might be an around the horn play to get rid of some reds.
Yeah.
It went back
Far.
back 4 foot distance.
So Kevin does have that yellow stone. He can run back into it now. I don't think that changes the favor of the red yet.
They're just gonna lob another one into the
Yeah.
mess.
Initially indicated top 12 foot, so I'm not sure how deep they do want this.
Oh, it's, I think, just all about cutting away, taking away that scoring area. I do not know what Team Ouellette will have with the.
Yeah, if he puts this right on top of the 800, it's going to be very difficult for Ouellette to get in there.
That one died a little unexpectedly. I think for the sweepers, they were not on it.
Mm-hmm. Probably getting a little bit of that pebble wear in that slide path that we discussed earlier, and now that it's the 8th end, just kind of grabs in at the end.
Now the yellow's available to raise.
I still think
onto the reds.
I still think red's in the better situation in the 4 foot.
Yeah, they've got 2 rocks above the tee line. I think that's the important thing there.
Yeah.
The right side of the top red was exposed before. It's totally buried. There's a red and a yellow guard out front. There's a yellow right in front of the red. I mean, I think that one's going to have to be raised into there eventually, but Kevin's just talking about putting another one in the 4 foot.
Do you get to a point where there's too many in there and you can't move anything?
Well, that's the Webb mentality of this end. Totally. They're just saying, well, if we put another of our stones in, they're going to have to deal with it, and they're hoping that Team Ouellette will lose their shooters. Kevin likes to draw here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that gets you at the end of it.
I think the idea is to have 3 yellows in the 4 foot and then use the last 2 shots to move the reds out of the way.
Still got to get that 4th stone in there, though. Interesting.
I know this has been a very...
And we wondered what the 5 rock rule would play, but they didn't even really use it this end.
No, we had center guards here.
Yeah.
We had a miss on the first shot, a tight guard leading to a high guard from Team Ouellette, and then no corner guards. And everything just being drawn around the center.
And just about every rock in play. Line looks good. Might be a little hot.
I don't want to bounce on the yellow. That's right where Kevin indicated, so that's what he was looking for. And this...
I don't know, Webb likes the guards.
This is so... Oh my goodness. Another draw. And I think we had handshakes there on one of our other quarters. That would be Jamie Murphy defeating Jeremy Vaughn. So Murphy will move on. Murphy will play the winner of our game if we ever reach the end of it after this long and drawn out 8th end. Normally with a 4-point deficit, you don't see this.
Yeah,
kind
usually you
of
see the
discussion.
team with the lead, keeping everything very clean, minimizing rocks in play.
I've only
And we've seen the
one
reverse.
peel. Because Team Webb has played all these draws, I think peeling now actually does hurt them.
Yeah,
But now they're going, oh shoot, the other team might have a way to get 4.
it's almost like we started guarding. We just have to keep guarding.
I'm looking at that yellow that's gonna have to be raised in. There's a red right partially on the button.
Yeah, I think that
It's gonna have to be moved.
I think that red on the top 4 though keeps you from getting the 4th point.
Well, if Kevin can raise the yellow into those reds, remove the button red, there'll be 3 yellows if he can preserve the back one on the 4-foot, and then he'll have a draw. I think he has to play the raise on his first.
Okay.
So I think this is still the draw call though here though for Scott Webb.
You know, it's almost to the point where you don't even want to throw it. So if you don't throw it, what do they do?
Are we getting
right?
into a Kevin Martin situation? Throw it away and then lose?
I just think if you put something in that path, as long as you can promote it. Almost have to just eliminate one more yellow. Certainly wasn't the end we were expecting. Pretty much where he wanted it, but I
Right
don't
in
know
there.
he's happy with it.
Hindsight 2020.
It's definitely open and usable. Is that a word?
So we're going to see the raise. This is what I've been waiting for. Actually, I think that shot that Scott just threw makes that raise easier because he's got a pocket.
A second catcher if the line's not quite perfect. So you can go straight back into the red to get the red off the button. So red, yellow, red.
I've been waiting for this shot, so I'm really excited. This has been such an interesting end in terms of like
Unexpected calls.
playing till the end. I mean, I'm sure Kevin's happy to be throwing his rocks. He's got 3 stones in the 4-foot. So I think he'll be throwing the heat here.
Got to move a lot of granite. But they're so close together that any contact on that top red one, I think the red on the button's going somewhere.
We got a friend from Michigan chiming in. Thanks for watching. Let's see.
Ooh.
There we go.
So he's got his 3 in the 4-foot.
So the back yellow went. I wasn't sure if I thought that back yellow might go, but that pocket that Scott just created by throwing that stone in there actually made this happen. The raised stone stuck around, and it would have run out the side otherwise. So
Yep.
now Scott, and if he hits that red that is in front of those 3 yellows,
May
could
jam on his back red.
So this is incredible. If he can hit it on the center line side, I don't know if we can get it. He can't really get it to drag on the center line side. And I don't know if he has enough on the other side.
Of course, the red stone is covering the top of the double yellows, and the yellow stone's blocking the path to the red.
The good news for Team Webb, they can only give up 4 right now, I think.
Correct.
So that's a tie.
They just need to eliminate 1 stone.
The good news for Team Ouellette, they might have a chance for 4. Do you run the center red back? Just try and eliminate one of the yellows, and then that's it?
Well, they had that up. That's been there pretty much all game, so.
That was the stone they didn't peel. Their own stone. The first. That's the if Damien's throwing the number 1, that would be the number 1 rock. The first rock that was thrown. There we go. They're looking at it now. So Kevin has a draw to the side 4 foot. If nothing changes right now, Kevin has a draw to the side 4 foot to tie.
Yep, so looks like they're going to run the red back.
And again, there is a crotch to run this into. If it hits the red first, though, I think we'll see a jam. So he doesn't want to hit this too high. Nose would be ideal and just straight back onto the yellow. So we're taking it down to the last to skip stones, the last for Scott Webb. One more from Kevin Ouellette if this one is not successful.
So do you think, like, the 5 rock rule didn't really apply to the strategy of this, but maybe the ability to make more of the finesse shots? So they're changing their style of play?
This looks good, though. Straight back.
There we go.
I don't know that Kevin has anything for 4 now, so we'll see.
Well, he has to make like a quadruple.
Yeah, I think he can get 3 of the reds gone, running the yellow back.
He does have a Yellowstone biting at the back 12 right below the team name for those of you that are tuned in. There it is.
I don't know that yellow, so they're going to run the corner guard here back, but I don't know that the yellow that's just nibbling the button will shoot over hard enough, but this is a Hail Mary.
Mike's laughing. He's like,
oh, don't worry about the angle, Mike.
Yeah.
Hit it hard.
I think he's just thinking, oh, gee, if we make it, it's wonderful. If we don't.
Is to hit this into the side, the left-hand red first. But good luck, Kevin.
Well, the hits were certainly his strength this game.
Extra weight running wide. And I'll get air on this. So that will make the final score of 2 for Team Ouellette, but not enough to tie after a very thrilling 8th end. The final will be 6-4. Webb over Ouellette. Webb moving on and will take on Jamie Murphy in the semifinal at 12:30, so just an hour away. We are still waiting to see the final of the Stevens-McKenzie game, which is in an extra end. You can follow all the scores on worldcurl.com, and you can catch us back here for the women's semifinal, where we have Jill Brothers, Tanya Hilliard, Krista McDermott, and Veronica Smith playing off for the finals. On behalf of Karen Sullivan-Skiffington, myself, Selena Thompson, our broadcast partner, The Curling Store, along with Strong Coffee Media and 45 North, and our presenting sponsors, Stanhope Simpson Insurance and Alexander Keith's Brewery. This is the 2018 Dave Jones Mayflower Cashspiel. Thanks for watching, and catch you soon.